Religion doesn't just tell people how to pray, it tells them how to live. It scripts how men and women should look, act, and even love. But what happens when those scripts clash with human desire, grief, or survival? Fill the Void and Super Deluxe give us two different answers, one quiet and orderly, the other loud and chaotic. But both reveal how deeply religion shapes gender roles in everyday life. Fill the Void follows Shira, an 18-year-old woman in an ultra-Orthodox community in Tel Aviv. After her older sister Esther dies in childbirth, the family worries that Esther's widower Yoshe will remarry abroad and take the baby Mordechai away. To keep the child close and care for him, Shira's mother proposes a new match, Shira and Yoshe. Shira hesitates, Yoshe does too, however she reluctantly agrees. But when the rabbi senses Shira's heart isn't ready, he stops the engagement. Time passes, Shira of her own free will returns to the rabbi and asks to marry Yoshe. Only then, when feeling, family, and law align, does the wedding happen. In this world, religion shapes gender roles in very clear ways. Women follow modesty codes, covering their heads, wearing long sleeves, that define how they present themselves. Men are expected to lead prayers, study, and consult with rabbis, while the matchmaking process decides how couples are brought together. But within those boundaries, women still make important choices. Shira's mother pushes for what she thinks is best. Shira decides for herself in the end who she wants to be with, and the older women quietly guide and advise. The men too are guided by religious duty, balancing fatherhood, work, and community expectations. What stands out is that these roles are religious without being robotic. They create a framework or structural guideline to base their decisions off of. In Fill the Void, the cinematography makes it clear that the world is built around religion. Most of the film takes place indoors, framed by doorways, curtains, and walls, so every scene feels contained, almost like the characters are literally living inside the rules. The shallow focus keeps us locked onto faces, while everything else blurs, showing how choices feel narrow and closely guided. The colors, the soft whites, creams, and blues, give off a sense of ritual purity, and the warm candlelight makes the whole space feel shaped by prayer rather than the outside world. We barely even see Tel Aviv at all. The camera keeps us where religious life happens, at family tables, in synagogues, or during baby blessings. It is not about how Jewish a film is, if such a definition is even possible, but it does engage in discussions about the nature of the Jewishness and Judaism that such stereotypes and images exhibit. Fill the Void takes the stereotype, arranged marriage equals oppression, and flips it, showing how gender, desire, consent, and duty are all worked out inside a religious framework. Altogether, this film shows us that religious duty and gender expectations are not just limits, but also guides that shape choices, protect consent, and allow love and responsibility to grow within the framework of faith. If Fill the Void is quiet and carefully contained, Super Deluxe bursts off the screen in the exact opposite way, loud, messy, and delightfully chaotic. Instead of a single storyline, the film throws together wild threads. A group of boys sneaking off to watch adult movies, a married couple scrambling to hide the body of a lover, a cult leader praying to God to save his son, and a trans woman returning to care for her child. The result feels unpredictable, almost like the movie itself refuses to be tamed. In mainstream Indian films, mostly romantic comedies in musical mode, the narrative predictably revolves around the heterosexual romantic union of the hero and heroine. The young, beautiful heroine is sexualized, commodified, and objectified, packaged relentlessly to provide voyeuristic pleasure to spectators, who are all predominantly assumed to occupy male viewing positions. Super Deluxe throws that all out the window. There's no single hero, no tidy romance, and no women packaged neatly for the male gaze. Instead, the film plunges us into messy, uncomfortable realities, and refuses to make them neat or easy. Its women, Bimbu, Shilpa, and Leela, step away from the Sita-like ideals of purity and sacrifice, and the story shifts its spotlight to choice, care, and the messy consequences that come with them. In the Ramayana, Sita is held as the symbol of loyal purity. She proves her chastity through trials and stays devoted to Rama no matter what. Vembu flips that script. She calls her ex over, has an affair, and when he suddenly dies, her first instinct isn't confession or penance, it's survival, trying to cover it up. But she isn't pointed as a liar either. When her husband comes home, she tells him the truth, and they both deal with it directly. Later, when a corrupt cop, the film's modern Ravana, tries to pressure her into sex, she stands firm and refuses even as her husband hesitates. Where Sita's virtue is judged by obedience and an untarnished reputation, Vembu's virtue is her agency. She takes ownership of her choices, defends her boundaries, and refuses to play the purity game. That makes her an anti-Sita, not because she's cruel or immoral, but because she refuses to accept the patriarchal idea that a woman's value is measured only by their loyalty and silence. In Hindu stories, fathers aren't distant figures. They play a large role in caregiving. Vasudeva carries baby Krishna across a raging river. Nanda raises Krishna as his own. Janaka adopts Sita, and Valmiki raises Lava and Kush. These are acts of love, but the stories frame them as masculine duties. Kings and sages protecting their lineage, upholding dharma, and showing heroic strength. Caregiving here is tied to authority, courage, and responsibility. Shilpa in Super Deluxe flips that idea. She comes back to her child not as the strong father figure those old stories glorify, but as a trans woman stepping into maternal care. Everywhere she turns, school gates, watchmen, relatives, people question her legitimacy, yet she refuses to step aside. For her, parenting isn't about gender. It's about what you do, feeding, protecting, and being there. Her story shifts caregiving from masculine heroics to simply caring and being there for your child, even when it can be harmful to yourself and image. That's what really makes a parent. Commitment and presence, not chromosomes or titles. In many old Hindu stories, people, especially women, are punished harshly for even a brief, impure thought. A famous example is Renuka. She's so pure her devotion gives her power. But one day her mind wanders when she sees a handsome stranger by the river, and her power fails. Her husband calls her impure and orders her son Parasurama to kill her, and she is decapitated. The tale ties a mother's word to perfect sexual purity and uses punishment to enforce it. Super Deluxe, however, goes in a different direction with Leela. Her past in pornography isn't a single impure thought, but a whole history the town will label impure. When her son discovers it, he's so ashamed that he runs to kill her, but the film refuses to give her a decapitation ending. Instead, her son accidentally stabs himself, leading to him being rushed to the hospital. Chaos leads to care. Leela stays with the injured boy, and the family scrambles for money to save his life, which humanizes Leela. The story is not a lesson in punishment or purity, but as a mother whose devotion to her son is real, stubborn, and knows no bound. Renuka is reduced to a vessel for other people's virtue. Leela is allowed to be a complex and loving woman whose past doesn't cancel her motherhood. These films show how religion scripts gender roles and duties and what that does to lives. In Fill the Void, everyone lives within expectations of Jewish law, or halacha. The proposed match between Shira and Yoshe is shaped by those religious expectations. Shira follows modestly, and matchmaking traditions won't agree to marry until she can honestly say yes. Her mother, Rivka, takes on the role of protector, trying to keep the family together, but always working through halacha. Yoshe, as widower and father, thinks about remarrying for his son's stability, but accepts that the decision has to be both permitted by tradition and freely chosen. All of this turns religious duty into a blueprint for love and care. In Super Deluxe, that script is broken apart. Vembu refuses the Sita-like ideal of perfect loyalty. She admits to the affair, rejects the cop's coercion, and insists on honesty instead of silent sacrifice. In Super Deluxe, each character is handed a religious-shaped script, and each one of them ends up breaking it. Shilpa is expected to be masculine and strong, since the father as protector is the script we see across Hindu stories, from Vasudeva to Janaka. Instead, she comes back as a trans mother and proves that real parenting is about presence and care, not fitting a gendered role. Leela is judged through the old purity lens. Once a porn actress, she should be ashamed and unfit for motherhood. But the film rejects that view, showing her as a caring, protective mom whose worth isn't defined by past. Each of them resists the religious ideal they're meant to embody, and by doing so, the film shows how breaking these scripts can open the door to a more humane, honest kind of life. Put together, Fill the Void shows halacha as a kind of framework that can steady choices and protect people, while Super Deluxe shows how the same religious framework can become suffocating rules that people have to break in order to live fully and find happiness.